It's finally time, everybody. Time for the grand reveal. Everything comes down to this. The finale is probably pissing you off already. I'll get on with it. Oh, before I do start though, I should mention, I have a blind date I'm going to. Her name is Controversy, and I have this sneaking suspicion that she's gonna be really ugly.
I am the solution.
Number 1. Amon, the Legend of Korra. Okay, so, first order of business. Damage control. I'm yet to actually do a video on defining anime. When I do, I'm actually going to go the opposite to popular belief, but this isn't that video. Right now, the only thing I'm concerned with arguing is the idea that when we talk anime, something like Korra shouldn't be excluded just because it's not Japanese. I mean, look at this show. Put this in front of anyone who doesn't know any better and Korra will likely be defined by them as anime. The only thing that really separates it from something that you would see as anime is something that's not even part of the content, the fact that it's not from Japan. If you changed nothing about Korra, but instead made it in Japan, no one would blink an eye. Just humor me for a second. Say Amon really is better than all the other antagonists. Doesn't it seem really unfair to kick him off the list purely for the single reason that his creators aren't Japanese and nothing else? I'm sorry, I have the principle of giving credit where credit is due. If I think an antagonist is this close to being called an anime antagonist, then I can't just ignore that. Besides, by dictionary definition, I am completely wrong. I can admit that. But is that definition really the one we use? Have you ever said you watch anime, that you like anime? Hell, I bet for some of you, 90% of what you watch is anime. I know that's the case for me anyway. In that context, does this definition really make sense? The sentence "I love anime" literally translates to "I love animation created by the Japanese." Does that mean you like this medium because it's Japanese? Of course not. That'd be kinda racist, really. People clearly gravitate to this subgroup of animation for an entirely different reason than because Japan. And shouldn't that reason, whatever it is, be the actual defining feature? It's not like I made this channel specifically for animation made in Japan anyway, but it just seems like I have, because anime most commonly fits the type of thing I want to talk about. This list is just called Top 10 Anime Antagonists because any other title would sound really stupid. Look, I ain't really here to change definitions or say you're wrong. That kind of argument gets dumb fast. If you want to go by dictionary definition, then you win. Congratulations. I just want the people that preach the dictionary definition and completely naysay anything that doesn't follow it to acknowledge that there has to be a reason why so many people think Korra feels like anime, despite being strictly not Japanese. And also acknowledge that a lot of people treat anime more like a genre than anything else. People don't gravitate to this medium because it's Japanese. That would be dumb. There's clearly something else that connects anime together into a group of entertainment. Anyway, I'll do a bigger video on this later. Oh, and if you're still not happy with my reasoning, I got one more thing for you. You know that weird-ass text in every one of the titles on this video series? It's a type of encryption called a Caesar shift. If you decrypt this with a key of 3, you get the title Top 10 Anime plus Korra Antagonists. What, you think I'd just ruin a surprise this good by not pulling a stunt like that? Anyway, now that that's over and I've hopefully averted a halfway dislike bar, let's talk about Amon. Amon is a masked villain from the Avatar universe. In a world where some people are naturally given the ability to bend the elements, a large number of the non-bending population feel like they are mistreated and oppressed by their bending counterparts. Enter Amon, leader of the movement that is in rebellion of bending, which is a little bit of a weird situation. Nothing quite says trust me with leadership like a guy in a mask. Amon's personality is easily his weakest feature. What, you thought number 1 was going to be perfection? Credit where credit is due, man. Anyway, Amon isn't too distinctive. He's fairly much generic, confident, mysterious badass, and I kinda understand why this was done. It synergizes a lot with his other superficial features. However, Makishima had a fantastic personality and still kept up the badass trait well, so it's not like it's impossible. But enough about his initial personality. Amon does so well with his other superficial features. You know how we talked briefly about the badass trait with Makishima, Johan, and Legato Blue Summers? Well, Amon has near perfect execution of this. Throughout the series, he is the dominating force. When he fights, he breaks his enemies without a sweat. Not that you could tell. Amon takes on freaking benders and then just defeats them with hand-to-hand combat anyway. On top of this, Amon is downright terrifying. His presence in the story has a huge effect on the characters. A whole episode was dedicated to how scared the Avatar, the main fucking character, was of him. Even on a mental level, he has every other character beat. He's always one step ahead. When the Avatar makes a ruckus in one of his movement events, he just lets her go free. He takes the opportunity to make just a messenger out of her. You really only need to look at the clips of this character to get what I mean. Just fucking look at this guy. Oh, and the best part about Amon's badassery? There are no anticlimactic defeats that break the atmosphere around him before the end of the series. The creators really seem to understand this. Everything is done to avoid demeaning his character. Hell, when the main characters need to break into the Equalist base for plot reasons, Amon is just coincidentally out on business at the time. This means that the fuck up is on the Equalist part, and it's not associated with Amon at all. And then when Amon tells his subordinates to do something with the Avatar, the show makes a point out of the fact that Amon specifically warns them not to underestimate her. So when she outsmarts his subordinates, the blame isn't on Amon. It's fucking genius! Legato Blue Summer's probably had the best conclusion to this kind of antagonist, and while Amon doesn't achieve that, I think he had a much more badass run in the time beforehand. And his conclusion was still really well handled anyway. In the last episode, he's bested only by a couple of moments and is finally defeated only by something super hard to predict. But for the most part of the final fight with him, it's played out like a horror. The characters are terrified of him, and the focus of the fight is more about trying to escape from him. Even when he is bested, he fucking gets away! One last thing on his superficial features. Here's something we haven't talked about before: mystery. The mystery surrounding who Amon is was so fucking amazingly handled. Amon starts out with crazy mystery surrounding himself as he's shown to have the power to take people's bending away, and it only gets crazier as you keep going. One of the two high-impact moments involves this. So, bloodbending is known as one of the world's most powerful forms of bending. You find out that the character Tarlok is a prodigy bloodbender, and someone to be very scared of, as he can control you like a puppet. But there's a scene where Amon just shows up out of freaking nowhere. He tends to do that a lot, actually. One of the things I love about him. Especially when the whole episode has been dedicated to some dumbass sports event, he just shows up like, "Sup motherfuckers, Blot's here." Anyway, he just shows up and walks towards Tarlok, intending to take his bending away. Of course, Tarlok tries to bloodbend him, but Amon, motherfucking Amon, just walks through it. This blew my mind the first time I watched it. I came so hard they had to issue a flood warning. I legit started to think Amon wasn't even human. This scene, man, both hugely badass and an emphasizer to one of the strongest mystery plot lines I've ever seen. Everyone was just dying to know just who or what this guy was when it aired. Anyway, that's the superficial features and one high impact moment down. Let's talk depth. First off, fantastic intricate motive. Even at the start when his character is a mystery, he's an antagonist who debatably fights for moral reasons. Hell, it's almost tempting to side with Amon. I mean, can we just talk about how the main character is less moral than him? Also, you brought an animal that's half polar bear to a warm climate. What the fuck is wrong with you? Through Amon's campaign, you begin to understand what he values as a person, and what he values says so much about him as both a human and an antagonist. And once the mask is removed, God, you gain so much more depth to this character. You find out that Amon is Tarlok's brother, and son to one of the city's criminal masterminds. This criminal mastermind escaped the city after having his powerful bloodbending removed by the original Avatar. He escaped to the Water Tribe where he had his 2 kids. He filled the 2 kids' heads with his failed dreams to take over Republic City and cruelly forced them into training their waterbending and bloodbending until Noatork, a prodigy among bloodbending prodigies, ran away, eventually to assume the new identity of Amon. I just filled you in on the plot there, but just trust me, the actual thing is so much more sadder and emotional than what I make it out to be here. Anyway, one of the best things I think about Avatar is its villains. Not just because of their personalities and initial depths and motives though. Avatar does this fantastic thing where they show you how the characters gain the personality traits they have through real psychology and upbringing. Ty Lee is a bubbly, excitable attention seeker because she wanted to separate herself from her like 6 other identical twins or something. Mai is completely reserved because she grew up being suppressed into silence by her family's desire to look good as they were involved in politics. Amon is no exception, of course. His relationship with his father caused him to both hate the idea of bending, become cold and detached as he was forced to toy with real living beings, and even though he undoubtedly hated his father, the story acknowledges that his father's ideals still shaped and influenced his 2 sons. As much as the two brothers hated him, they still drifted towards the idea of taking over Republic City, just as their father tried to do, even if it was in their own way. As much as they hated their father, in the back of their mind they still wanted his admiration and respect, just like real children. Random side note, this was the only thing that bothered me about Azula's depth from the original series. The episode The Beach tried to give us some insight into how Azula became who she is, but she effectively said my own mother thought I was a monster. But it never really gave us any insight onto why she became a monster as a kid in the first place. I think the intention was that Azula took after her father while Zuko took after his mother, but that was never said or implied. Anyway, I think Amon's depth is right up there with Makishima as the highest on the list. So Amon has perfect and fully realized depth and amazing superficial features with both the dominating trait and the hugely powerful mystery trait, which we haven't really seen on the list yet. But what else does he do? Well, he's a little hateable for one. He takes the bending away from a couple of notable characters. It wasn't anything close to Envy's killing a beloved character, but it was kind of close. Man, people were pissed when Amon took Lin Beifong's bending. Anything else? Well, just like the last two on the list, he has two high-impact moments. We've already talked about one when I talked about the mystery element, but the other comes at the very end, the conclusion to his arc. After all his plans come crashing down, he releases his brother from his prison, stating that he is all he has left in this world and he wants to start over. Tarlok takes him up on his offer and they head out to sea. But Tarlok, mortified by the actions the two of them have taken, decides to put an end to this sad story and blows up the boat. Not only is this scene hugely shocking, but what makes it one of the most amazing scenes is that just before Tarlok blows the boat up behind his brother's back, you see a tear fall from Noatok's eye. Without a word to the audience, Korra insinuated that through his bloodbending, Noatok could sense what Tarlok was doing and did nothing to stop it. At the very end, Noatok accepts his brother's actions and agrees to commit group suicide. This would be the perfect time to crack a joke. I'm not gonna crack a joke. Jesus Christ. Between this and his backstory, most people really started to care for this guy. Now, you might be particularly wondering how this guy beat Envy. So this is debatable. I think Amon just has a lot of extra stuff that Envy doesn't have. If I were to sum it up, Envy has a decent personality, super strong depth, is super hateable, and has two really high impact moments. But Amon has perfect execution of the badass trait, super powerful mystery, two high impact moments, and fantastically strong depth that explains how his life as a child even shaped the things he did in the future. I mean, not even Envy has that last one, even though his depth is super strong. Because, we're told that he's envious because he's a homunculi, but I mean, so were the other 7 deadly sins. Why didn't they share his envious trait? Honestly, I might have given Envy a bit too much credit. The scene where his depth is explained is a little more vague and flawed than I made it out to be. It was really good, but it would be a lie to say that I came out of it without a couple of questions. But I think Envy did have the most powerful high impact moment in the entire list when he went up against Mustang. Honestly, I think these two are pretty close, and if I tweak my reasoning a little bit, I could switch them around. But do you really want that? Come on, I had 4 minutes worth of content for Envy. Do you really want that for number 1? Or do you prefer me dropping a controversy bombshell for number 1 and surprising everybody? Because I know what I'd choose. I love to keep everyone on their toes, you know? If I'm gonna make a top 10 list, then I want to make it unique. And if I have to do some serious extra legwork in explaining myself to try and avoid a 50% dislike ratio, then so be it. It's part of the fun of it. Because the other option is that I just pick Envy and then everyone just agrees with me because it's gonna be the far more openly accepted choice. Yeah, that's just not my style. I'll be real, some of the characters on this list do 1 or 2 things better than Amon. Johan does creepy better than Amon, for instance. Envy is a high impact moment than Amon. Neji is more hateable than Amon. Medusa is smaller than Amon. But for every trait the other characters excel at, they have a trait they either don't have or just bomb at. Amon doesn't have this. His character is made up of so many jacks and kings in different trades, and even an ace in character depth, high impact moments, and superficial features. He has some creepiness of Johan, badassery of Makishima, some smarts of Medusa, some hateability of Neji, high impact moments of Luxus and Envy, and it's all combined in a character whose depth is perfectly fleshed out and explained all the way down to how his upbringing made him the way he is. And that is the reason I believe that Amon is the greatest antagonist in straight up any medium. For now, anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Unique Namosaurus and I will openly put forth any controversial opinion as long as I have reason to believe it. When it comes to putting forward a new idea, there is nothing I fear and nothing that you can do to deter me. Please don't unsubscribe from me.